Joining us now on the Oakland County Megacast is Eric Jones, the Executive Fire Commissioner for the Detroit Fire Department. Commissioner, thank you so much for being with us.
Hello, Ronnie. How are you?
We're doing good. So bring us up to date. We've never had you on the show yet, so it's great to have you on here with us on the Oakland County Megacast. How are the men and women of DFD doing right now?
They're doing wonderful. They come in every day to save lives and save property. They haven't missed a beat from the beginning of the pandemic. They've been on the front line serving, never wavering.
I know in the beginning, Detroit was one of the hardest hit cities, not only in the state, but across the country as well. We've lost a lot of good people in the city of Detroit due to this virus, but it does seem as things are starting to calm down a bit. Can you talk about how you responded to the crisis in the beginning and where things are now?
Yes. So in the beginning, we were actually the tip of the spear for the city of Detroit. Our safety protocols, our job aids, our use of personal protection, it wasn't something that was new to us. Our medics and our firefighters that respond to medical runs, they've always worn the N95 mask, the gloves. So when the pandemic happened, we were able to help other departments with the use of PPE, the use of protocols. We even put together a team of EMS supervisors who went around the city for city employees to do patient assessments to determine whether or not the city employees should go to the clinic, to the hospital, or just be sent home for the day. So we were at the tip of the spear, and we remain at the tip of the spear for this pandemic.
And with that, how has it been for your department now in the ability to get PPE? Are you well stocked as we're looking like we're about to go into a second wave here?
Absolutely. We're well stocked. In fact, so every Monday at 10 o'clock, I have my operations meetings with my division heads, and we went over our inventory, and we are well stocked. In fact, we're in a better position. Before, we were rotating and going through our N95 mask, but we actually purchased some new devices for the firefighters and the medics, filters for their masks, so that we don't have to encroach upon our inventory of N95 masks as much.
How has this been on the EMS side of the house? In the beginning, I would imagine extremely stressful, because how many calls are you responding to daily on the medical side?
So we average about 350 a day. At the height of the pandemic, it was upwards of 450. The runs have leveled out. And just by way of reference, the national average for EMS response time is 8 minutes. So for the past 8 or 2 months, we've been under the 8-minute national average. So they are doing a phenomenal job.
Eric Jones joining us on the Oakland County Megacast. He is the Executive Fire Commissioner of the Detroit Fire Department. And Eric, as departments went into the first wave of the pandemic, they had to put together a lot of plans pretty quickly to be able to mitigate the pandemic but still provide the same similar services. With this second wave we have, at least in the initial portions, potentially on its way, how is your department preparing for that, given the circumstances that we're under now versus in March of this year?
So we're a learning organization. We learned a lot during the first wave of the pandemic, and we put in place some policies just in case a mass amount of our members were infected with the virus. And we have extra equipment. We have additional overtime rosters put in place. We have additional surpluses of equipment put in place. We have additional apparatus and vehicles put in place. So we are well positioned to handle the service calls that might arise because of a impending second wave of the pandemic, COVID virus.
So I have to ask, I've been in the firehouses. how do you keep firefighters socially distanced, or even medics for that matter, because they're in the rigs together, they're living together 24/7. It's got to be hard to say, hey, you have to be socially distanced when you're eating at the dinner table together. Or is it basically like schools are doing now, where they have cohorts per se?
So what we're doing now is our members wear a surgical mask when they're in the fire stations. They have a large supply. Our supply is pretty robust of the surgical masks, so they can rotate them out. Obviously, at the beginning of their tour of duty, we have protocols in place where they check their temperature. If anybody is exhibiting any signs or symptoms of the virus, then we send that person home. But you're right, the ambulances are partnered up to medics, and the fire crews have 4 individuals on them. So they have to work together. They just have to protect themselves, they have to protect each other. They're feeling sick. We have a policy where if you feel sick or exhibiting any of those signs, don't come to work. If you do come to work and you start exhibiting those signs, then we get you treatment and send you home until you feel better.
Yeah, what's so hard about this is a lot of times people may be sick and they don't know they're sick. They're asymptomatic. And so it's this whole pandemic has been crazy for everyone trying to navigate this. So I can't imagine being in your seat and trying to do that as well, especially when in the beginning testing was hard to get. So people were being knocked out. Like if you had to quarantine an entire, engine house, what are the plans and the protocols to try to address that, to make sure there is staffing?
So as I stated earlier, we're a learning organization, and one of the things we do right now is surveillance testing. So our department is approximately 1,200 members, and every week we randomly test about 100 members. So while we don't know, because some individuals are asymptomatic, we have been able to identify individuals who are asymptomatic and positive. And then we go back and do the contact tracing with the individuals that person was around or working with over a certain period of time. We test those individuals. Therefore, we're better prepared. There are no surprises where we're having to put out entire companies of firefighters because of an exposure that we weren't aware or that snuck up on us. We're being more proactive this time.
That's good. And it's like you said, this has been a learning experience for everyone, every department, every business, every entity. I'm wondering about how are things going in the city of Detroit, because with the shifting demographics of how people are working now, the downtown office buildings aren't as packed as what they once were, but then you probably still have people out in the neighborhoods that would maybe go to work who are now home. So has that changed where you're responding as far as either medical or from a fire standpoint?
So fires are down and the medical runs are down right now. Last year around this time, we were at 2,100 building fires. This year we're at 1,900, and our medical runs have dropped from at the height of the pandemic, 450, 500 a day down to 300 to 350. So things have leveled out, and the response time for our firefighters, for the past 2 weeks, if you call 911 because of a fire, our guys are getting there in 5 minutes and 30 seconds. It's completely amazing.
Yeah, and I wonder too, people before, there were some people that would use 911 and the EMS service as basically a taxi to get to the hospital when they didn't need to. And so a lot of times that did hurt the response times, because some people that didn't necessarily need an ambulance were relying on the ambulance to get them where they needed to go, or to a hospital or a situation like that. So with the fear of COVID, did that help contribute to the fewer calls, do you think?
That helped contribute. People don't want to go to the hospital. When you go there, you can't have a family member come sit in the emergency room with you. It's just a really difficult process. The other thing that we've done is we've expanded our technology. So we're using for our EMS telehealth. where we're treating the patients with some of our new EKGs, calling the physician right on the phone and making a determination as to whether or not this person should or should not be transported. So there are various things that are contributing to the reduction in our medical runs at this time.
Eric Jones with us here on the Oakland County MegaCast. He's the Executive Fire Commissioner for the Detroit Fire Department. Do you think that's going to stick around? The telehealth aspect will stick around post-pandemic?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no turning back. It's making us more efficient, giving us a greater and a better ability to communicate with the hospitals. So I do believe that it's going to stick around and expand.
One thing this has taught us is like you can't do things the way you used to do it. So before, I can imagine if you had the conversation, hey, we're going to start using telehealth, people would have been like, no way, it's not going to happen. But now we're being forced to do things in a new way, in a different way. And I think there's going to be some benefits coming out of it in the long run. Any other benefits that you think will stick around post-crisis?
I think it's making people be more conscious of when they actually call 911. You alluded to the fact earlier where, many times we would get a call and we would pull up and a citizen would be standing outside with their suitcase. And, we're not Uber, we're not a taxi cab, we care about you, but we are an emergency services provider. And when we are responding, we're there to save a life, not to be a cab service. So I think is raising the conscious level of individuals as to why they call 911.
As far as looking at this crisis long term, how do you think that's going to impact the staffing levels or just the interest from people in the public wanting to go in to the fire industry, or for that side, even the EMS side as well? Do you think more people are attracted to the field now because they see that they can really help directly on the front lines, or do you think it's distracting because people don't want to be on the front lines?
No, I think Americans want to help. When you look back at World War II, and they were called the greatest generation, and everybody stepped up to serve. It's the same thing is happening right now. We're not having any problems with retention or hiring. We have a class of 22 firefighters right now. We just graduated a class of 9 EMTs and paramedics. We had to change some of our protocols with our academy. The practical aspects, they show up and train physically distancing, but most of it is done virtually online. But we haven't seen any impact. I believe it's going to be a greater interest as we move forward through this time period.
That's got to be weird to try to, practice CPR on a dummy virtually. But with that, if people are thinking about joining the DFD ranks, it's one of the highly sought after fire departments to be able to join. How can they get that information? Do you have an upcoming class at all?
Yes, we've already established a list for the class that's going to be upcoming in the first part of 2021. After that, I believe that the list has been exhausted, but they can go to the city of Detroit, detroitmi.gov, and click on the fire department and walk through the hiring and recruiting process. So
Detroit's just getting out of bankruptcy, surviving bankruptcy. The financial status was getting kind of back on track. We were seeing Detroit was the comeback city. Businesses were opening, people were moving into the city, and now we're in a crisis and everything shuts down. How worried are you about the impact of COVID-19 and the pandemic on your budget?
Obviously, I'm concerned. When there are no revenues coming in and businesses are being forced to alter their practices, then yes, we do have some reductions in revenue upcoming. But at this time, our department has the equipment we need. We have the technology we need. We have the ability to train like we need. And I don't expect that to change. I just expect that we have to be better stewards of the budget. And that's been my main goal since I've been here. If we can control this budget and do it professionally. Make sure that we are doing all the things that should be done as it relates to counting the dollars, then we'll continue to be able to provide high-level service to the citizens of Detroit and the visitors of Detroit.
Eric Jones with us, Executive Fire Commissioner at the Detroit Fire Department, with us on the Oakland County MegaCast. Eric, beyond COVID-19 and budget issues, there are far more problems that are commonly dealt with by the fire department on a daily basis in Detroit and other fire departments locally. What are some of the more common problems that we see this time of the year that your department suggests to residents of Detroit or even those in other areas, as these are common issues that may cause hazards in the home or may require the services of the fire department on an emergency basis, and how can people prevent those issues from becoming problems that would require emergency help?
Yeah, so the weather is getting cold, so you have people bringing in artificial heating devices that should only be used outdoors. People should change the batteries in their smoke detectors. The holidays are coming around. People should not drink and drive. We've had some horrific accidents, some fires that were completely preventable. So those are the hazards that you start to see. The temperature drops. There are a lot of celebrations because of the holidays, a lot of drinking and driving, and those are the things that we want to prevent. Make sure that you're safe in the home and that you're safe on the road.
So, Eric, I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit.
Okay.
You're like, oh, I'm nervous. So for those that don't know, you were actually with the Detroit Police Department for well over 20 years. And then you made the switch over to the fire department. Between the two of us, which do you like better?
Well, let me put it this way. So I served for 25 years at the Detroit Police Department. My son is a Detroit firefighter. My wife is a sergeant at homicide and DPD. I bleed blue. I love both. I am a first responder, a public servant, and I love public safety.
You got a little nervous there for a second, didn't you?
Tad bit. Just a little.
Come on, I wouldn't do that to you. Eric Jones with us on the Oakland County MegaCast. Before we let you go, though, I will say, if we had an award to give out for the coolest backdrop, I know it's virtual, you would definitely get one because that's an awesome scene behind you there.
Well, thank you, Ronnie. After putting me on the spot, thanks for the compliment.
Eric Jones with us on the Oakland County MegaCast. I will say, anyone who is interested in joining the ranks of the Detroit Fire Department, all across the country, it doesn't matter where you go, people talk about the Detroit Fire Department, the work that they do each and every day. They are very well respected. People come from all the other area fire departments. They work hard to try to get onto DFD, and a lot of good things have been happening since Eric took over running the department just a few years ago. So check them out, but also want to let people know Detroit Police Department is also hiring. So if you want to serve the community, look to the city of Detroit. They can use a lot of good men and women to join their teams, not only on the police department, the fire department, but as well as for the first responders and the medics as well.